I haven't loved him for a long time. We have become complete, very foreign to each other, like strangers. We say hello in the evening and goodbye in the morning with strange smiles, dreading the weekend because we have no common interests, and the time we spend together is very long. Honestly, I'm scared to be around someone I don't love. I don't understand why we're still together. I'm sure his feelings for me have faded even before mine for him. Sandra pressed enter and leaned back in her chair. Her thoughts and feelings rushed through the wires at the speed of light. In a second, he would read her letter and decide what he should do. The virtual romance with Chris began a month ago. Such desires had never occurred to her in her mind. Perhaps it could turn into something more than just an interesting companionship. Sandra wasn't looking for adventure and didn't want to do something she might regret later. Sandra hated cheating in all its forms and was never going to cheat on the man with whom they had lived for several years and with whom they had experienced perhaps the happiest moments of their lives. She had once loved him, but the romance was gone. The gray of everyday life and routine had arrived. They got used to each other. There was nothing new anymore, nothing emotional. When you get used to the snow outside your window, you stop enjoying it. It no longer makes you excited and want to run out and play with it. It becomes just snow, cold and sticky. So it was with their relationship. They no longer evoked joyful emotions, the desire to be around all the time and talk about everything. The relationship had become a duty, it had become cold, and Sandra felt like she was drowning in that coldness. Some people, even after many years, continue to feel love for each other, but Sandra and Timothy did not succeed. He began to annoy her with his presence, gestures, and words. She used to listen carefully to his every word, but now all his reasoning seemed to her empty and useless. She found it difficult to listen to him. She did not notice how they began to communicate less frequently. He was not stupid and saw that he had become uninterested in his wife. His feeble attempts to rebuild something were unsuccessful. Yes, he tried to do something, but Sandra decided that she didn't have to try to glue what was broken back together. She just went with the flow. The apathetic current inevitably led her to the end, and the denouncement came. She met another man in the online space. This man began writing her words she hadn't heard in a long time. He even sent her poems. Now she felt free from all obligations, free from the fear of judgment. Now she wanted only one thing: to immerse herself in a world of feelings, thrills, and love euphoria. After a week of acquaintance, Chris sent a picture of himself. As is often the case, when we get to know someone virtually, we imagine him or her quite differently. More often than not, we are very afraid of being disappointed in what the person will really turn out to be. Sandra hesitated for a long time before she opened the photo file. But finally, she opened it and sighed with relief. He was handsome, with beautiful features and eyes. She had always liked that type of man: dark hair, dark eyes, and deep gaze. It was at that moment that Sandra felt an unbearable desire to see him in person. She felt that she was ready to do what she hadn't dared to do for a long time: burn bridges. She decided to write Chris a message. I know how you feel about me. I am not a naive girl, but I see from your letters that you are as lonely as I am. I don't understand why your wife can't appreciate you, why you have the same problems in your family as I do, though perhaps you could never understand my husband either, with whom I have had nothing for a long time. And when I say nothing, I mean exactly that: nothing. But not now. It's not about your wife or my husband.
You know, I have grown attached to you. Now I'm writing you these lines, which I may regret, but I want to tell you to come. I want to be with you. My husband won't be back until a week from now. He's very busy with work right now, and he's gone on a business trip again. I'm sure it's to avoid seeing me, to be as far away from me as possible. Because of his work, he has completely forgotten about my existence. But I don't care, and so come. After glancing at the text again, Sandra thought for a split second. After a brief pause, she sent the message with a sharp movement. The lines instantly went down the wires at the speed of light. Chris sat in front of the monitor, waiting for the letter. The man, wearing an unbuttoned shirt with an open collar and holding a cigarette in his hand, quickly ran his eyes over Sandra's letter. He reread it several times, greedily absorbing her words and phrases. Everything in his chest was on fire. He was ready at that moment to drop everything and go to her. She was calling for him. He wanted it so badly. He got up from his chair and began to walk around the room. Without stopping to smoke, he typed a few lines on the computer and sent them off, then collapsed on his bed without energy. Sandra read, I love you, baby. I want to, but I'm not coming. I'm sorry. Sandra didn't understand why Chris wrote that. After all, everything was fine. They were going to meet, discussing the possibility. But after that message, Chris disappeared. He no longer responded to Sandra's numerous requests to talk. What's more, he didn't even read her messages. At this time, my husband returned from a business trip. Timothy, as usual, was strainedly polite and calm. This really hurt Sandra, in whom a storm of emotions was simmering. Timothy was unresponsive to Sandra's attempts to cause conflict. He was head over heels immersed in his work, his business, and his thoughts. On top of that, he was sick on a business trip and seemed preoccupied only with himself. A few days after her husband returned, Sandra decided to talk. It was a Friday evening, and the two had just come home from work and were sitting across from each other at the kitchen table. Timothy, I think we need a divorce. We've become complete strangers. I've had the feeling for a long time that we have nothing in common. With her head down, Sandra said, Do you have someone? With his head down, Timothy asked. No, I don't have anyone. Do you? Sandra asked. No, Sandra, I don't have anyone. And I never have. I still love you, but it's like you're not with me. You're somewhere far away. I see you drifting away from me, and I realize that I'm only making it worse when I try to stop it. In the last year, I have had serious problems at work. First, a big shipment of goods was ruined, and now I'm having trouble with business partners who want to cheat me out of a deal. I've been telling you about all of this, but you don't seem to care. I've been in particular need of support lately. I haven't had a chance to give you much time. But you don't want to understand me and wait a little while for things to get better. If you insist, I'll give you a divorce. I won't torture you if you can't stand living with me. A few months later, Sandra and Timothy quietly divorced. They tried to keep their relationship friendly. For 2 or 3 months, Sandra kept writing to Chris, but he never responded. She sincerely thought she loved him. They always had common topics of conversation. It seemed to her that he said everything sincerely. When she saw his picture, there was no doubt. She really liked Chris, and she wanted to be near him. Sandra wrote Chris that she had divorced her husband. She was free, and they could start a new life. Maybe his relationship with his wife is getting better, she thought. But it also scared her to think that something terrible might have happened to him, something irreparable. She was afraid she would never know what really happened. The girl was very homesick and bored. She lacked communication, but not with her girlfriends, but with a close person, a man, her husband. She wanted warmth and hugs. She even began to think that maybe she had made a mistake in divorcing Timothy. Maybe she should have given him a chance. He had asked for time to rebuild the relationship. A year has passed. Sandra, you're going to be alone forever, living alone until you're old. No one around you is good enough for you. What ideas do you have about men? What ideas do you have in your head? Kira, Sandra's friend, said, Kira, I see that lately Chris has started reading my letters. I feel something is holding him back. Something has happened to him. I can't think of anyone else. I've fallen in love with a non existent bot, an artificial intelligence. It's nonsense, Kira. I understand. If I knew where he lived, I'd go to the ends of the earth to see him, Sandra continued. Honey, he's probably just a scary freak, really. He probably sent you someone else's photo, so he was scared to meet you. Why would you do that? I'm telling you, he's definitely an old pervert who likes to mingle with young and pretty girls to remember his youth. Kira has always been pragmatic and straightforward. I don't care what he looks like. I fell in love with him even before he sent me the picture. We think alike. Our souls are so similar and close, Sandra replied. Time continued to flow inexorably. After the divorce, Timothy lived alone and did not consider anyone as his chosen one. He still loved his ex-wife. Timothy had hoped for a long time that Sandra would change her mind and call and they would reconcile. Things were getting better at work and there was a lot more free time, but there was nowhere to spend it. At parties, with friends and colleagues, he usually didn't go more than an hour. And when tipsy girls started to get to know him, he'd go home or to the ocean, which was only an hour away. He could sit and stare for hours, remembering the happy hours he had spent with Sandra and the day they had met. The young people met in the park near the fountain. Timothy stood with a large bouquet of lilies and waited for the girl on her first date. After waiting for an hour and a half, he lost hope and gave the flowers to the first girl he met, which turned out to be Sandra. Now, Timothy truly regretted that he had not paid enough attention and time to his wife. The separation was so painful to him that he began to have heart problems. Sometimes he had shortness of breath and tired quickly. He was examined many times, and the doctor said it was the effects of stress and worry. He could be cured, but the stress was absolutely contraindicated to him. Timothy found solace in the gym. He started working out until he was exhausted. His head was occupied with muscle pain, not heart pain. He was afraid to miss a workout because he thought his heart would jump out of his chest if he didn't give it a physical workout. That evening, Sandra wanted to go to bed early. It had been a hard and very long day, and she did not want to talk to anyone. When she picked up her phone to mute it, she saw a message. It was a message from Chris. Her heart was beating so fast and loud that she could hear every beat. It was hard to breathe, and all she could hear in her head was the pulse and the vibration of her heart. Sandra, hello, Chris wrote. I'm sorry I stopped corresponding with you. I've been having some serious problems, including family. I understand if you don't reply. Hi, Chris. I'm really glad you texted me. I was going crazy and had already changed my mind about everything, even the fact that something had happened to you. It's wonderful that you've got it all worked out, Sandra wrote, and almost without rereading the text she had written, she sent it off. Emotions overwhelmed her. She was happy. Communication with Chris plunged the girl into another world, another reality. The next day at work, Sandra's colleagues did not recognize her. Energetic, smiling, she tried to talk, joke, and wish everyone a good day. Chris, I hate to ask you this, but did you send me real photos back then? The girl wrote. Sandra, tell me, is this very important to you? No, it doesn't matter. Really, it didn't matter to Sandra at that moment. She only asked it because she remembered a conversation with her friend, Kira. Sandra and Chris talked from early in the morning until late at night. They even discussed renovating Sandra's apartment, rearranging the furniture, and deciding on the color of the wallpaper together. Chris, I'm ready to come to you now. Tell me your address and I'll go, no matter how far away you live, she wrote. Let's wait a little while. I'm not ready for a new relationship yet. Do you still love your ex-wife? Sandra asked. Sandra, the divorce was hard for me. All I can say is that I still care about her. The silence lasted several hours. Chris, I'm willing to wait. As long as it takes, just don't leave me again. Sandra wrote. I'm sorry I hurt you then, he wrote back. 3 months passed. Sandra discussed all her business with Chris. She could no longer do without him. If they didn't text for more than an hour, Sandra was missing something. Communication, advice, his energy. Eventually, Chris, too, developed a thirst for companionship. Every morning, he wished Sandra a beautiful day and wrote the warm words she needed. Sandra did not recognize herself. In the morning, she flew to work, admiring the beautiful sky, rejoicing at the good weather, even when it rained. She smiled and enjoyed life. As time passed, Sandra began to miss long-distance communication with Chris, and more often, she asked him to come over. She wanted to touch him, to hold him, to feel him close. The first snow fell outside the window. The snowflakes were spinning and the first patterns began to appear on the windows. It's finally snowing. The Christmas mood is appearing, the smell of the holiday, the smell of gingerbread and pine needles. Sandra wrote to her lover. Sandra, what if I came to visit you on Saturday? How would you feel about that? Chris wrote. Sure, Chris. Come on over. Here's my address. Let me meet you at the train station or the airport. What transport are you going to take? Sandra wrote. Why don't we meet for the first time at some restaurant to get a sense of the holiday atmosphere? Chris suggested. What are your favorite flowers? All right, come on. The main thing is that we'll finally meet. Sandra couldn't contain her emotions. She wrote the message and jumped on the spot. I really love lilies. Saturday was still 2 days away. It seemed like an eternity. Sandra couldn't stop thinking how nice it would be to spend Christmas with the man she loves. On Saturday, Sandra arrived at the restaurant 30 minutes before the appointed time. She wanted to arrive early and not keep herself waiting. She wanted to see him walking in her direction. Those first seconds of acquaintance were very precious. Chris bought a huge bouquet of flowers, walked up to the restaurant, and saw Sandra in the window. Her table was right by the window. His heart hammered as if he had run 3 kilometers for a time. And if she doesn't want to keep in touch when she sees me, maybe shouldn't ruin everything. Chris thought. He wanted to leave, but his eyes were blurry. He lost his balance due to vertigo and leaned against the clear glass that separated him from the woman he loved. Sandra saw the man standing by the window in the street, directly in front of her, slowly sliding down the glass. A huge bouquet of lilies fell to the ground. Sandra ran out into the street, where a crowd of curious passers-by had gathered. As she got closer, she dropped her purse in surprise. Timothy! Timothy! What's the matter with you? How did you get here? Call 911! Sandra screamed loudly and with tears in her eyes. Timothy was unconscious. Soon Timothy was on a stretcher. motionless. The doctors were fussing and doing something with wires and tubes. I take it you're his wife? The nurse asked. Yes, answered Sandra faintly. Take his cell phone. It fell out of his coat pocket. Taking the phone in her hands, she didn't know what to do. Chris? Timothy? How could that be? She unlocked her ex-husband's phone. The lock code was her year of birth. He never changed it. She began to look at the correspondence. Tears gushed from the girl's eyes. She could not hold back. Woman, calm down and let us do our job, the doctor said. Your husband is coming around. I'm sorry I fooled you. You're the meaning of my life. I couldn't just give up on you. I don't want to be with anyone but you, Timothy said faintly. 5 years later, Timothy and Sandra had 2 beautiful daughters, Mila and Kate. Daddy, before Mom hears me, I want to tell you something very important about Mom, Kate said in a whisper. She often gets texts on her phone from some Chris, but for some reason the picture on her avatar is yours. I think you should deal with Chris. Yes, sweetie, I'll be sure to talk to him. By the way, this Chris guy I know very well, Timothy replied. Whenever Sandra is upset with Timothy or needs attention, she now always texts Chris to talk, to get support, and to get compliments, which really turns her on.